This is a little conversation. Hey everybody, I'm in the classroom and I wanted to do a quick little video on fermentation, right, and the two kinds of it. So we have this concept where you're doing respiration, breaking glucose apart, doing glycolysis and all of that, but that's where respiration ends. So you don't go through Krebs cycle and electron transfer chain. You just kind of stop at glycolysis, which gives you a little bit of a problem, and this is your problem. So you have your glucose molecule that you break apart to two molecules of pyruvate. So that is a 6-carbon molecule, and here you have two 3-carbon molecules. That's all fine. What you would normally do, you would take this pyruvate and you would send it over to the Krebs cycle. What happens if you can't do that? And the reason why you can't do that is because you would run out of oxygen. So you don't have oxygen, you can't do electron transfer chain. Electron transfer chain backs up. You shut down the inputs for the Krebs cycle. Therefore, the Krebs cycle can't happen because you don't have the inputs, and it sort of ends right here. So you end up with this buildup of pyruvate. So the problem with that, you make ATP right here a little bit, and that's all fine. The problem with that is that along the way to doing that, you take a molecule of NAD and you make a molecule from that of NADH. This here is produced before the ATP is made, which means in order to make the ATP, you have to have the NAD as a reactant. The place where you would normally produce the NAD as the reactant is by taking the NADH and sending it over here to the electron transfer chain. You're not doing that. So the NAD gets exhausted and the NADH builds up. The NADH builds up and you have to use that. You have to come up with a different way to regenerate your NAD from the NADH because you're not using electron transfer chain. So what you do, you have two options, one of which produces ethanol. It's called ethanol fermentation. The other one of which is lactic acid fermentation. I'll go through each one in turn. So what you do in lactic acid fermentation, you take your molecule of pyruvate, you react it directly with the NADH, and from that you make lactic acid. What pops out of this is your NAD+. So problem solved. You can just take this NAD+ and just loop it back in. What you end up doing then, however, is building up lactic acid, which is fine, but you're going to feel that in your muscles when you do it. So this usually happens when you're in the gym or you're exercising really, really hard, so much so that you actually, you're requiring more oxygen than you're able to actually get. So your mitochondria are completely maxed out. They can no longer do any more. They cannot make ATP at a rate faster than what they are. And you're starting to sort of get low. It's like, oh my God, I need ATP, but my mitochondria are max. What do? You'll overdo glycolysis over what your Krebs cycle and electron transfer chain can actually accommodate. And so what you end up doing, you end up building up lactic acid as this terminal electron acceptor. So perfect. That's lactic acid. Now for ethanol. All right, so here we have where we were. We have our pyruvate. All that is fine. We're not going on to Krebs. We can't do that for whatever reason. Either oxygen is being completely exhausted, or we're a bacteria and we don't even have these reactions over here, or we're a fungus and we don't even have these reactions over here, and this is all we do. And if that's the case, that's fine. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our molecule of pyruvate, and we're going to, from that, break off 2 molecules of CO2. Right? As we do that, because we have 2 molecules of pyruvate, we're going to get this molecule called acetyl acetaldehyde. It's hard to spell and talk at the same time. Acetaldehyde, what we're going to do then, take the acetaldehyde, react it directly with the NADH to make a molecule of NAD+, producing ethanol. We can then take our NAD+, plug it back in, and use that as our reactant to get the whole process started again. So again, the whole objective here is to make the ATP, make as much ATP as possible. In doing that, we always have to be making sure that we have the reactants that we need to keep the reactions going. And again, the only reason we have to do this end product stuff down here after we make the ATP is because we're running low on NAD+. We have to come up with a way to do that. There are two ways. You can either make ethanol or you can make lactic acid, like we just talked about. That's fermentation. That's anaerobic respiration. That's awesome.